Okay, so I'm here with Ryan Francis, a good friend of mine that I've known for years, and we have very somewhat similar background in our philosophies and theories about self-awareness, personal growth, also some child development, conscious parenting things as well. And yay! Also, I really haven't asked you, like certain things that we can or can't talk about. So I'll just I'll keep it very business-like. But one thing I came up with that I wanted to talk to you about, I had sent you a video of Jay Shetty. He's an ex Buddhist monk. I don't even know what faction of Buddhism. I would assume Zen Buddhism. And he has his own podcast. And one of the things I found very interesting that he was talking about recently, and I think that you responded to me that you really liked it, was he had talked about people that were when he was in his monastery, they would took everything away from them, and the faction of monks that did the best are the ones that focused on service and contribution, as opposed to, let's divide it 50-50, the other half that was focused on survival. Right. And so, I've had several recordings, videos on my YouTube channel, Allison Angelis, Angelis, where I talk about the waterline. And the waterline is being at the waterline is when you're at a place where you're not in survival mode and you can work upward in creating and being in your realm of flow for, creating your purpose and contributing. One thing I think that I omitted quite a bit was the notion of contribution and service, right? And I really feel that that's a way out of, a lot of mental states that are, related to mental illness, like anxiety and depression, is to be focused on service as opposed to survival. So I just wanted to get some feedback from you on how you felt about that.
We could have a whole hour-long conversation about that alone, because
Right.
there's two critical components. One is the idea of fear and lack versus love and light that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And just what mindset that puts you in, but also just from the mental illness perspective. I'll just give an example for myself. There was this happened multiple times in my life, so I'll just make it singular.
Okay.
This one time, I was really upset about something. I can't even remember what it was right now. And it was that type of deep sad where I was pretty much inconsolable. And my partner was doing her best to give me love and care for me. And we just kind of had to leave me kind of how I was feeling for a minute. And then something came up for her.
Oh, wow.
And she got deeply upset. And instantly, it was like a flip switch. I was perfectly fine.
Oh.
I was 100% in caretaker mode. And all of my energy, all my conscious energy, went to how do I care for this person that I love, this human that I love. And when that happened, I went, oh my God. All that emotion that I had, all that upset that I had was totally impermanent. But we this idea that how I am emotionally right now is how I will be forever. It just feels so all-encompassing. And the moment that I was in a care mode for her, it all went away. And it didn't come back. After we finished talking and she felt better, I just kind of laughed.
Wow, I love that.
Or another great example, here's a hack for you.
Okay.
If you're crying, instead of someone holding you, hold them.
Huh.
So, people talk about big spoon, little spoon. So you would assume I'm crying, I'm going to roll onto one side, and Erin's going to come up behind me, and she's going to big spoon, and I'm going to little spoon, and she's going to comfort me. And this one random time I was sitting on the couch, again, I don't remember what I was upset about. I was upset about something. And I was leaning against the back of the futon, and she just came up, sat on the futon, and leaned against me, and we just kind of fell over, and I was holding her while I was crying. And this thing slowly happened where my mood transformed, and suddenly I was holding her. There's a affective component to that.
Yeah.
Caring for her, and I started to feel better.
I love that. I think about our nation right now, where it's at as far as young adults, particularly, high school kids, just so,
especially in this area.
yeah, well, in all over, just deeply suffering with, feelings of, dysregulation and feeling isolated and kind of alone with their, thoughts and feelings. And, there's a severe amount of depression and anxiety. And, I think this is a great hack, as you say, it's really hard, when people are in survival mode to say, like, well, think of something outside of yourself. That's kind of like, that's a little off putting, honestly. But I mean, just kind of going in a weird circular thing, I used to listen quite a bit, Tony Robbins, and one of his things that he would do, and his audience, he would pick somebody out of the audience, someone he's like, well, I want somebody who's really depressed, and then he would start telling them, a joke or something, and then they would flip from severe depression, to laughter. And his point was, changing your physiological state, changing your state. Well, it could be physiological, or I don't know if you would call that physiological or mental and emotional state. You can choose to go in and out of those experiences, physiological and emotional experiences of feeling depression or anxiety, right? So,
And it's important, I think, to establish that some mood and emotion is physiological.
yeah,
I need to change my sleep pattern. I need to change my eating pattern.
true.
I might need medication in order to
Mm,
help me regulate my mood. And then there's indulgence. Then there's
yeah,
pattern, right?
yeah.
There's a fair amount of anxiety. Like, I had a student who was super duper anxious about shots. And it was always this problem to get her blood drawn or get like a shot of medication. And she'd freak out. And I saw her curled in a ball against a play structure one day. And I just walked over. I was like, "What's that?" Okay, let's get out for a second here. What's up? Like, communicate with me. She's
Okay.
like, oh, I'm upset about the shot. And I knows the thing, and then my parents make it worse, and all that stuff. She didn't say my parents make it worse.
Mhm.
She said what her parents did, and I'm like, your parents are making it worse.
So we're on the idea of indulgence.
Exactly. So she kept either being fought against how she was feeling,
Mm.
not acknowledged for it,
Right.
or which actually ended up sinking her deeper into it.
Yeah.
No, it's okay to be upset.
Yeah.
It's okay to be anxious.
Yeah.
It's about, do you want to stay there?
It's funny. I think a lot of listeners, when they hear the word indulgence, I personally might be triggered by that, saying like, wow, you're saying I'm indulging. Well, you're not living in my shoes. You didn't have the experience that I had. Right. So, I thought quite a bit about the idea of indulgence. I've kind of worked through those ideas. I talk a lot about comfort zones and then going into a new realm. And I feel that, yeah, it becomes patterned physiologically as well and neurologically, these comfort zones of suffering. Even though they seem antithetical, suffering and comfort doesn't seem to be like that go together, but it's familiar. And so it becomes grooved and patterned neurologically, to go back to those thoughts and then those feelings that are connected to those thoughts and then the physiological state underneath that. And that's a comfort zone because that's the known, right? These ideas and thoughts. And so if we can maybe entertain the idea that that could have some truth to it, I feel that a lot of people don't know what else exists outside of that. So that would be discomforting because we don't really understand. Well, what else is there if I don't groove into the idea that that's real, what you would call indulgence? And so what else would there be? What would be the vista? What would be the landscape then?
Right. So for this child, we talked through it, and I just was like, hey, it's okay to be upset, right? Because so often we have an additional layer of fight in ourselves where we're either giving in to how we feel. It's like, I'm just an anxious person. It just is what it is. And it's a self-identification. And then for other people, it's like, no, you're not honoring how I feel. It amplifies the experience even more.
Totally.
And so for this particular child, it was just, hey, I acknowledge, you're anxious. I also know you're strong.
Yeah.
I also know you're capable. I said, no, you've done this 100 times and you've survived every time.
Yeah.
So it was a perspective shift.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
So then it became a game. And then we started talking about, well, how do we game it?
How
do we game what's happening?
Right.
And she's like, oh, yeah, I pay attention to my parents. I know when I'm going to get a shot because they start acting weird. I'm like, oh, good for you. Good for, so I start, get her in this positive mindset.
Yeah.
You know what's going on.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'm just going to handle it.
Handle
it. She got her shot. She came back the next day. Ryan, wham, huge high five. Totally handled it. No tears, nothing. My mom.
Oh, wow. Paradigm shift.
Like, exactly.
New shift. The new landscape, right? The paradigm shift. Just to, wrap up, because we're just making a somewhat short video. I do feel, one thing that I've learned, by force and experience, raising kids and, just interacting with other humans, is to listen. I call it active, non-reactive listening process, where you listen without any thoughts or judgment or guidance or teaching. And so, just holding space and listening to somebody, I just had practice with this recently, where I immediately was triggered and I wanted to go into solving and teaching, and it doesn't work ever. And so I just focus like a meditation on my breathing and then my physiology. Like I often put the shoulders around the neck and I just listen to this person, because then it didn't create that polarizing reaction where I just listened and held space. But going a little bit more masterclass with it was afterwards, I summarized back to her what I thought that I heard. And that is the big game changer, because when I said back sort of bullet point summary, the gratitude that the other person had was so great to be heard. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to be heard and affirmed for how they felt. When you do that, they often come up with their own solutions. And honestly, they do not ask for your thoughts on how to fix it, because it's honestly super annoying. I know it for myself as well. And that really is a very healing thing, just to listen and to repeat back, active, non-reactive listening. But anyway, back to the idea of service as opposed to survival. It's a good one for me to remember, because often I will, in a very id kid, small self child way, get triggered, and then I have to remember, oh, whoa, like I'm caught in the Maya, samsara, and gratitude gets you out of it, and service, and changing your physiology. For me, I'm a big workout person. That always hardcore, anything hardcore. I know a lot of people use it, and I do highly recommend it. Music is another, way to get yourself out of that state as well.
It doesn't work for me because dance is something that I would choreograph, so I kind of live in my body in a different way. But just even doing like 10 push-ups and like 10
True.
Just activate my body, and then
right.
Sit and I do some deep breathing. It's like, oh,
yes, yes. I love the deep breathing. I love the pranayama. It's very like, try to not do it in front of other people so they think I'm insane. But
I do it in front of people now. It's like, whatever. You'll get it when you get it.
It's so funny. I had an issue once where somebody was just very dysregulated, dissociated, and kind of like directing all their anger towards me. And I was doing this very loud breath work, almost like I was giving birth. And they were so in their state that they almost didn't understand what was happening. I was basically doing this thing where I go, and I was doing it over and over and over again. It was very calming, actually. It was kind of calming for them too. But anyway, here we are. I'm here with Ryan Francis. He has his own podcast, Educate for Life, correct? Is that right? Recommend that you listen to it. Very interesting. Has interesting guests as well. But it was so great to talk to you briefly. All right. Thanks. Yay.